The forest stood still, an ancient sentinel guarding secrets long forgotten. Ancient trees clawed at the twilight sky, their branches twisted and gnarled, resembling skeletal fingers reaching out in silent agony. Their branches gnarled like skeletal fingers, whispering tales of old to those who dare to listen. A low mist clung to the earth, swirling with the scent of damp soil and decay, wrapping the forest in a shroud of mystery. At the heart of this desolation, nestled amongst the twisted trees, stood a hut, an izba, that seemed to breathe with the forest itself. It wasn't its crooked wooden frame that chilled the soul, nor the thatched roof heavy with moss, but something far more sinister. It was the way it moved, as if it had a life of its own, a sentient being bound by ancient magic. A twitch, a shuffle, a slow, deliberate turn on a single enormous chicken leg, defying the laws of nature and reason. The Izba of Baba Yaga, the legendary witch of Slavic folklore, a figure both feared and revered. Within those crooked walls, a fire crackled in the hearth, casting flickering shadows that danced with the movement of the hut, creating an eerie ballet of light and dark. The air hung heavy with the smell of wood smoke and something else, something ancient and unsettling, a scent that spoke of forgotten rituals and dark magic. A cauldron bubbled ominously over the flames, its contents emitting a sickly green glow, hinting at potions and brews of unimaginable power. And seated upon a stool, her back to the door, was a figure of nightmares, Baba Yaga, the witch whose name sent shivers down the spines of those who spoke it. Her name was whispered on the wind that rustled through the trees, a name spoken with fear and reverence in equal measure, a name that carried the weight of countless legends. She was the guardian of the forest, the keeper of ancient magic, and the weaver of fates, a being whose power was as old as the trees themselves. But she was no benevolent grandmother, her visage a mask of malevolence and cunning. Her magic was as unpredictable as the forest itself, her favors granted with a price that could chill the very marrow, a price that often came with unforeseen consequences. And tonight she was expecting a visitor, someone who would soon learn the true cost of seeking the aid of Baba Yaga, the witch of the forest. Far from the creeping shadows of the forest, in a village clinging to the edge of civilization, a young woman named Vasilisa wept. Her tears fell like raindrops on a window pane, blurring the flickering light of the hearth within. Her stepmother, a woman with eyes as cold and calculating as ice, watched her with disdain. Beside her, Vasilisa's stepsisters, as vain and cruel as their mother, giggled behind their hands. Simple? Vasilisa scoffed inwardly. Nothing about her stepmother's request was simple. She had been tasked with the impossible, to venture into the heart of the forbidden forest, to the hut of Baba Yaga herself, and return with a gift, a single burning ember from the witch's hearth. A task designed not to be completed, but to be a death sentence cloaked in a whisper of hope. Fear coiled in Vasilisa's stomach, cold and tight. She had heard the whispers, the tales told in hushed tones around the village well. Tales of Baba Yaga, the bone-legged hag who devoured the souls of the unwary. But fear warred with a steely resolve. She would not give in to despair. She would not let her stepmother's cruelty break her. She would go to Baba Yaga, and she would survive. The forest welcomed her with silence, a silence so deep it seemed to swallow every sound, a silence so profound it felt like a living presence pressing in on her from all sides. Each step deeper into the woods felt like a step further from everything familiar. The path ahead was uncertain, but she had no choice but to move forward. The trees closed ranks behind her, their branches intertwining overhead to form a canopy that choked the light. The deeper she went, the darker it became. The path was treacherous, twisting and turning, as if the forest itself was trying to confuse her. Roots snaked across the ground like grasping claws, eager to trip her. Each step was a careful negotiation. Thorns tore at her clothes and skin, leaving behind scratches. The forest seemed to be testing her, but still She pressed on, her fear a constant companion. She couldn't afford to stop or turn back. She clutched a small knapsack and a wooden doll, her only comforts and reminders of home. A gift from her late mother, the doll's presence was a small comfort. She held it close, drawing strength from her mother's memory. As darkness fell, the forest came alive. The shadows deepened, and the air grew thick with the sounds of unseen creatures. Strange noises echoed through the trees, whispers and rustling sounds that set her teeth on edge. Shadows danced at the edge of her vision, taking on monstrous shapes that vanished as soon as she turned to face them. The air grew colder, and the scent of decay intensified, clinging to her clothes and skin. She was deep in Baba Yaga's domain now, and the forest was watching her, judging her.
I will survive this. I have to. Her resolve hardened with each step. She would face whatever the forest threw at her and emerge stronger.
The hut loomed out of the darkness, a grotesque parody of a dwelling. It sat perched upon its chicken leg, swaying slightly as if impatient. The fence surrounding it, constructed from human bones, gleamed whitely in the moonlight. Skulls, their empty sockets staring blindly, adorned the fence posts, each one a silent testament to Baba Yaga's power.
Baba Yaga, grandmother, my stepmother has sent me. She asks a favor.
The hut remained silent. Then, with a groan of timber and a shower of dust and cobwebs, the door swung inward. The stench that wafted out made Vasilisa gag. It spoke of decay, of rot, of things best left undisturbed.
Enter, child. Let me have a look at you.
Summoning all her courage, Vasilisa stepped across the threshold and into the unknown. The interior of the hut was small and cramped, the air thick with smoke and the cloying scent of something akin to rotting meat. The walls seemed to close in, suffocating, as if the very structure of the hut was alive and breathing. A fire blazed in the hearth, casting flickering shadows that danced across the walls, making the already cramped space seem to pulsate and breathe. The flames licked at the air, creating an eerie, almost hypnotic rhythm that added to the unsettling atmosphere. Seated at a table fashioned from a giant skull was Baba Yaga. The skull's hollow eye sockets seemed to stare into the void, adding to the macabre setting. Her appearance was both comical and terrifying. Her mismatched clothes and wild hair gave her a chaotic look, yet there was an undeniable aura of power around her. She was impossibly old, her skin stretched taut over her bones like parchment, her nose a crooked beak that jutted out from her face. Each wrinkle and line on her face told a story of ancient magic and dark secrets. Her single eye, a milky white orb, burned with an unnerving intensity, taking in every detail of Vasilisa's appearance. It was as if she could see into Vasilisa's very soul, reading her fears and desires. She was dressed in rags, layers upon layers of filthy fabric that seemed to writhe and crawl with unseen life. The rags moved as if they had a mind of their own, adding to the sense of unease.
So you dare to seek my aid? Her voice was a raspy whisper, yet it carried a weight that made Vasilisa's heart pound in her chest.
She picked up a ladle, its handle fashioned from a human femur, and dipped it into the bubbling cauldron. The liquid inside was a murky, dark brew that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. A wave of nausea washed over Vasilisa as the stench of whatever concoction brewed within hit her nostrils. The smell was overpowering, a mix of decay and something unidentifiable but deeply unpleasant.
My stepmother, she asked me to bring her a burning ember from your hearth. Vasilisa's voice trembled as she spoke, her fear evident in every word.
Baba Yaga let out a cackle that echoed through the hut, a sound both chilling and oddly amused. The laughter seemed to reverberate off the walls, amplifying the sense of dread.
An ember? Is that all? How mundane. Her tone was mocking, as if the request was beneath her. Very well, child, complete a few simple tasks for me, and the ember shall be yours. Her words hung in the air, a promise and a threat all at once. The tasks, Vasilisa knew, would be anything but simple. But even she couldn't imagine the horrors that awaited in the witch's twisted games. Leave a like and subscribe for the part 2.